to the annual Intern Sharing Day here at OGP. My name is Zing and I'm the marketing intern here at OGP and I'm also the moderator for this event. So let me give you a quick rundown of what will be happening in the event. So for the first 40 minutes, we'll be having a fireside chat session with 4 of our interns who will be sharing more about their work here at OGP. Following that, it will be a 10 to 15 minutes sharing session by 3 of our hiring managers. We have Elwin from the software engineering team. You want to raise your hand?
Woo, Elwin!
Then we have Holly from the product design team. Is Holly here? Okay, maybe later. So we also have Russell from the corporate team, who's also not here yet, but they'll be coming in later to share more about the hiring processes for each specific function. And afterwards, there'll be a 20 minutes Q&A session, so you can ask your burning questions to our interns as well as our full-timers. And lastly, at around 7:45, we'll be having our dinner and networking session, so you can mingle with the rest of our interns who are also not part of the fireside chat, as well as our full-timers. So before we get started with the fireside chat, let me give you a brief introduction to who OGP is. So OGP is an experimental development team built like a modern tech company that tackles public sector problems. So what we aim to do is to solve real problems in our community, and that means creating products that people actually need. So I think all of you may have used at least one of our products before, whether you know that they are built by us. So some of our more notable products would be Parking SG, Scam Shield, and Health Appointment System. If you have booked your doctor's appointment before for either general consultation or for vaccinations. So beyond our products, a core part of our team is to push for change. So when we approach our products and projects, what we aim to do is try to make a difference in the life of Singaporeans. So beyond work, we have also established a great environment for our employees to work in. So we're not just talk. Here are some statistics from Glassdoor and Nookplay to show that we have obtained high ratings as a company to work for. And in fact, we have been recognized as a great place to work, and we are the first government agency to be recognized as one. Yeah, so now we'll be moving on to the fireside chat session. The fireside chat interns, you want to come over here and take a seat. But before that, please scan the QR code on the top left so that you can ask your burning questions for the Q&A session. Okay, so to start off the session, can you give a brief introduction of yourself, your description of your work in OGP, as well as a fun fact about yourself? Okay, let's start with Reina.
Hello, so my name is Reina. I'm going final year computer science student at NUS. So at OGP, I'm a software engineer intern on a product called SGID. So it's actually, you all just use SGID there. Yeah. So one fun fact about me is that I play the drums. I play in an indie rock band and a metalcore band.
Hello, my name is Tejan. I'm also a software engineer intern here, and I work on Health Appointment System. So it's the portal where people use to book GP appointments for vaccinations and also general consult. And I'm currently going to be a final year student in NUS. Fun fact about me is that I swam with sharks before about 1 year ago.
Wow.
Hi, hello, my name is Desmond and I'm a product design intern here at OGP. I'm currently working on a new product. It's actually a contact-based management system that helps government agencies and citizens communicate better. My fun fact is that I once climbed a volcano in Indonesia in the dark with a friend, and we only had some water, some food, and a really small torchlight, the kind that you get as a free gift during an event. We were too cheap for a guide, and we got lost. We took the off-beaten path. We didn't manage to submit, but it made for a good story.
Hi, I'm Shreyas. I am currently in my final year studying my MBA at the University of Maryland. I work in the partnerships team, and we help all the product teams interface with the rest of the government agencies. Fun fact about me. I've hiked to Mount Everest Base Camp before, so like if anyone's interested, happy to share any details on that.
Very interesting facts. So we have a very diverse range of interns over here. So moving on to the next question, why do you join OGP? Let's start with Shreyas.
So the work you do at OGP is very meaningful because it impacts a lot of stakeholders like government agencies and general public. And for me, so I came to Singapore when I was 14 years old under a scholarship from A-STAR, Agency for Science, Technology and Research, and it was like a life-changing experience for me. So doing the internship at OGP was like a way for me to give back in a small way.
For me, I really wanted to work in a place that builds valuable products. So as you are probably aware, in OGP, we build products that allow people to use redeem vouchers, book COVID vaccinations, check and report scams. So those are the kind of things that I feel like it really helps to better people's lives and society. So that was like the main core reason. And also I spoke to like a couple of people who work at OGP full-time before coming in, and I had a sensing that the internship culture here is very good. Like people really value intern work. So that's like the environment that I wanted to come into to learn.
I think for me, similar to the rest, and I think OGP is like a really, really unique place in the sense that in other private firms, it's like, or even other government firms, it's like what does my boss want me to do, or does this project, how is this project able to sustain itself, like profit-wise, financially-wise. But over here, everything is like justified by meaning and public good. Like, does this make sense? Who is this gonna benefit, and how is this gonna impact other people? And we ourselves, like within the organization, we can drive and decide what kind of projects we wanna work on. So I think like it's really hard to find that anywhere else at all. Yeah. So that's why I was interested in OGP.
So for me, I think it's quite important for me to see what I build impact people. Like, I'm not a big fan of working in large teams where you just focus on a tiny part of the product and then you don't really see things from end to end. So I think working at OGP has given me the chance to be able to see that. And I think another thing is also the tech culture. Like, I think they did a good job in marketing. When I was at school, I heard a lot of good things about OGP. So it's like naturally like, oh, I want to see what's up. And also because I get to like dress down every day. And you see like half the office in slippers. So I think it's quite chill.
Thanks for saying that we did a great job in marketing. So what are some, now that you have thought about why you have joined OGP, what are some like of your biggest takeaways from your internship experiences? You want to go first? Or?
For me, like, okay, so this is a bit more engineering related lah. So personally, I'm quite invested into front-end engineering because my previous internship was that. And so I wouldn't say I'm particularly confident in my skills in the backend and in infra. But because I worked on SGID, which is a very naturally like backend and infra heavy product, so I think like I was kind of like tossed in the deep end, a bit uncomfortable. But I feel like that's cause that resulted in me being able to learn a lot. So I feel in the engineering aspect, that's my biggest takeaway. But I think on a more like soft skill aspect, I think I enjoy working with my team a lot because they are very like supportive of my learning, and I feel like they go out of their way to help me learn, and in that way I feel like I can become a more like professional and respectful teammate to them as well.
So similar for me, I actually had 2 previous internships in like larger companies. So the first was like a financial institution and the second was big tech. So I think the biggest fundamental difference was in other places I sort of had my own project as an intern. And even for full-timers, like usually you have like your small microservice to tinker on, you deploy that and then you move on to the next microservice. But then over here, it's really like one team working to one project together. And we really work very closely in parallel. So I would say to that extent, I learned a lot in terms of good practices, best engineering practices, because previously, although there was also that, over here people are a lot more invested in what you're doing. They really look to the detail, like how you organizing your code, why you do it this way, and we communicate a lot in that sense. So I grew a lot in best practices. And another thing is, of course, like working as a team. I think it's a very superficial thing to say like, oh, teamwork is important, I learned to work as a team. But here it's really like everyone is super tight-knit and we communicate with each other very frequently just because you're always working in parallel. Yeah.
I think just to add to that, I can really relate to what Raina said. So there's a lot of discomfort coming in as an intern, I feel, only because nobody treats interns as interns here. You're just expected to like get up to speed and do the thing, right? And that actually is very good, and it's a very good stimulus. So you do learn very fast. It can be very intense, but at the same time, you really do grow very quickly. So that would be one of my biggest takeaways.
For me, I think what I found was really unique was that there's a lot of emphasis on autonomy, and like it might be cliche to say it, but it's really true. In OGP, you really do whatever it takes to get your product out within the rules and regulations, of course, but you do whatever it takes, and that's my biggest takeaway. Yeah.
Cool. So, are there any challenges that you face working in OGP, and how do you overcome that?
What you think of is a challenge tells more about you than the challenge itself. But for me, a lot of my work was internal facing, so and like everyone's really busy. So one of the challenges that I faced was for one of my projects, like trying to get everyone on a single meeting slot was not very easy because everyone's busy. They have different schedules. So one of the ways I went around it was try and get as many people as I can, and for the people that I can't, just organize one-to-one meetings with them. Yeah.
For me as a product designer, I feel like I'm like engaged in a perpetual game of tag with my engineers. So for a little bit of context, how we are structured here in OGP, generally every team has like one product manager, one PM, 3 to 4 engineers, and one product designer. So at the start, I was trying very hard to not let design be the blocker for my team. Yeah. And to overcome that, I think I asked for help a lot from my colleagues, from other designers, and thankfully, like my team were also very supportive. So they could know like, okay, maybe this is the thing that we need to prioritize for now, and then we can look at the other things maybe later down the pipeline. Yeah.
For me, one huge challenge was just getting used to the pace of work and the fact that like your stuff, your code for me goes out like within a week to the public, like literally the public. So previously, in my other internships, like if you say your code is going to production, it's probably like an internal tool and it's for other engineers. So if there are any other bugs, like the 4 or 5 engineers who are using it will just let you know kindly, and you're like, oh sorry, then you go change it. But over here, like real people in the public are actually using your things, and there's stuff that's like sensitive. You're using it, you're giving stuff to like older folks. So like having a good product and production ready code is really very important. So in my first week here, my first feature actually caused a production incident, which was like quite insane. Like I was really panicking on the inside. But my team was very calm about it. So how we overcame it was sort of as a team. My manager like slowly talked me through like, okay, what's going on? Let's look at what's the issue and think of what's the best way to solve it quickly. So we actually solved it very quickly. And the whole time, it wasn't like this is your fault, go and fix it yourself. It was like this shouldn't have happened because we have so many checks in place. This is our shared responsibility, and how can we do better? Okay, like it wasn't that big of a deal, TBH. But I found that kind of mindset very reassuring, and eventually like I also got less scared pushing stuff out because there's really like a lot of people working together to make sure that your code goes out safely. For instance, like first of all, you do the checks. We make sure that everyone goes through the checks. There's a reviewer going through the checks with you, and also the people who do the release also do certain checks themselves. So there's this huge sense of like shared responsibility, which I really appreciate.
I think I want to agree with Peyton on the shared responsibility thing, because like I feel like my team also, and I guess the org as a whole, places a lot of emphasis on like, oh, it's not your fault. Like we do postmortems regularly when there are like incidents or like things happen, but then like instead of like, oh yeah, it's cause like this guy did this wrongly, that's why there's this. It's always like oh yeah, it's not your fault, don't worry. But instead, like, how can we focus on like the takeaway, the learning points, how make this not happen? Yeah. But personally, for my challenge, like just now I mentioned that I struggle with more like DevOps backend stuff, and I think this is also related to what Desmond said about having a lot of, Shreya said about having a lot of autonomy, because I think an important skill to have is being able to navigate very ambiguous problems and scope them into something you can do. Because I feel like a lot of my tasks were very ambiguous, and so I had to, and sometimes they are quite gargantuan, like oh, go and like automate this testing pipeline, like that's all, and then like I have nothing to work off. So I think the challenge was to not like get overwhelmed, but instead to like sit down, don't stress out so much, but then like talk to your colleagues to try and figure out how systematically break it down, and yeah, figure out how to scope your problem.
Cool. So now you've like thought about your struggles and challenges here in OGP. Have you received any kind of mentorship here? If so, was it sufficient, and do you feel like you were able to grow? Yeah, mentorship.
Mentorship, yeah, actually I feel like I do have a supervisor who is the best. He's great. But I feel like I've received mentorship from really every single person in the team. Because like whenever, I mean a lot of places say they are open, but I think over here it's really like you have a question, a very small stupid question, you just ping somebody, you just hop on a call, huddle for 5 minutes, and then like all your problems will be solved. Sometimes like it's really like a really small bug. Then I really use some full-timer as my rubber duck, and then we just get it. They just sit there, then I'm like, oh okay, I figured it out, thank you. Then they just like, no props. Then yeah, so that's super nice. Other than that, I think people at OGP are super good at giving feedback. So I've learned so much through things like code reviews and all my daily PRs. So for instance, people here, like a lot of people just give feedback like, oh, you can do this better, you can be a better communicator, or you can improve on this by maybe try doing this. But then over here, people always have like this certain, a very clear actionable or an example. So for instance, if they look at my code and they think it could be something better, they will put themselves in my shoes first. So they'll say something like, could I understand like why you approached it this way, and what do you think if we tried this other way? And then they will put like an example or like a reading for me to go and look at. And even so, it's not always like oh, they are my boss, so I have to listen to them. Like they're actually really usually when they put stuff there, it's like open to discussion. So they actually want you to argue with them and tell them like why your other way is better. And yeah, that's something that took me a while to realize also, but after that I really like flew and progressed and learned very quickly because of that.
I think right here in OGP, like every intern has a supervisor, right? So we all have a mentor, and like the relationship is it's 1-to-1. So I got to learn a lot from my mentor, but at the same time, just like what Jason said, everyone in OGP is very willing to help, even if they do not belong to your team or your function. So I really feel like it takes a community or it takes a village to like raise an intern. So you're looking at the interns that have been raised by everyone here in OGP.
Yeah. So just to add on, I agree with everything that they said, and also OGP also has like a board of advisors, and they hold like office hours. So like if you want to get advice like mentorship from any of the board of advisors, you can even sign up for their office hours, and they're really distinguished people in the areas of like software engineering and all of that. So there's a lot of opportunities to get mentorship if you're willing to take the initiative.
So I want to share about mine.
Okay.
For me, about coincidence, my supervisor is also the best. Shout out to
Who's
Jie
the
Hao.
best then?
No, I was pointing at Cameron. He's not here. He's playing soccer. I think I don't have that much to add from what they said, but something I want to point out is that a lot. I have syncs with my supervisor on Monday and Wednesday, but more than half the time, like at the end of the sync, he will ask me like, is there any way I can be better supporting you as your manager? And I think that's always like very nice to hear. Yeah.
Yeah, same.
Cool.
Comparing
Do you want to share more about like the projects that you have worked on and like the extent of contribution that you made like to the project?
Oh.
Anyone wants to go first? Rachel?
Okay. So I'm on health appointment system, which we introduced earlier also. The extent that we contributed. So when I first came, like obviously I got smaller tickets, but as time grew by, like I take on tickets off like our sprint board, just like any other full-timer. So just you see what's the highest priority, who if anyone's not taking it, then I'll just pick it off. And I remember at the start, because people didn't really know like what I was used to and how competent I am as an engineer. So I was getting like really small tickets. Then I remember like after my first week, I also my manager also asked me the same question, like how can we help you grow better and what kind of tasks you want to take on. So I also voiced out to say like I want more complex tasks. If you want to give me infra stuff, like I don't really have experience in that, so I would love to have exposure and that kind of thing. So that was very nice. And so more recently, I was actually quite involved in building the logic for MediPay, which is a huge feature in HAS that helps to improve cost transparency when people book appointments. Yeah, so that was quite cool. Like the fact that they entrusted such a big feature on me also, and the fact that the timeline wasn't even like lax, it was actually quite urgent. So I felt quite appreciated that I'm able to get these kinds of larger responsibilities and that I'm a trusted member of the team. Yeah.
My team is building like a new product. So it's a product that we are helping to facilitate communication between government agencies and citizens. To the extent of my contribution, it's actually very surprising, but I'm sure like all of you have already heard how much an intern can contribute. And nobody treats us like interns or treat me like an intern, and we are just supposed to like pick up whatever task we are given and learn and run with it. So I think it's very exciting to be able to see like my own fingerprints on this new product, and it's this impact that's like quite cool and quite addictive. Like it's really quite cool to think that you are an intern, you come in here and then you can make things and contribute that would go out to the public. So this, I'm not sure because this is the first internship experience that I've had, but I'm not very sure if anywhere else you could be doing something like that to this extent.
No, I agree 100%. So like one of the projects I was working on was implementing a customer relationship management software across the multiple functions, and like a lot of the internships that I've heard from my colleagues, they don't get that kind of autonomy. I was also one of the mentors for the inaugural Build for Good hackathon. I think some folks are here from there, and the team that I mentored won the 10K prize, and they were mentioned by Mayor Lo Yin-ling in her closing speech, and none of my peers in my MBA cohort have had that kind of opportunity. So if you are able to deal with that kind of autonomy and ambiguity, OGP is the place where you'll get that kind of opportunity.
to the way we kind of do assessments for internships for software engineering. That typically starts with the CV screen, which was alluded to earlier. It would be vetted by one of the software engineers and screened through. Assuming you get through that, you will then be subject to online codility test. An online coding test. We use Codility as a platform in case that helps you. And I would like to think that they're not lead code style of questions. Why are you all abandoning me? I would like to think that they're not really lead code style of questions, but some people have kind of fed back that it kind of is like a lead code kind of question. So you be the judge. If you get past that, then you'll be subject to a technical interview with your prospective intern manager. That usually consists of 20 minutes going through what you listed in your resume with a relevant technical discussion, followed by a 40-minute coding exercise. Once you get past all that, then we will talk. And assuming you do well, then we will talk. People ops will be in touch to discuss the terms of your offer and your start and needs and that sort of thing. Zing, have I missed anything? Or that's about it, right?
Yeah, I think that's about it.
Cool. Can't find me if you have any more questions about like OGP or the process. So, thanks.
Yeah, I win.
Next we have Pearly from product design team.
Hi, I'm a product designer here on the team. So for PD interns, the process is quite straightforward. So first of all, there's a CV screen, and what we look out for is your CV, and you have to have a portfolio when you submit. So a lot of interns at this stage, they don't really have like any industry experience, but that's okay. You can just create your own case study. It will be really good if you can find a problem that you see out there in Singapore and then try to work your way through that problem and show us how you approach it. So that's the CV screen, and if you get through that, then there will be a 1 hour interview. So that will be conducted by 1 to 2 designers. So you'll be basically asked to walk through what you have in your portfolio. So that will take typically about maybe 30 to 40 minutes, and then we'll ask you questions along the way as well. Mostly about your decision making and prioritization. And then if you get through that, then that will be the internship. So internships typically last for 3 to 6 months.
Do you have any tips for portfolio review?
I think a lot of people miss out on the resume part. The resume is really important because it shows off the design skills. So it doesn't have to be really fancy, but just keep it really clean and neat, and don't have any spelling mistakes and things like that, because those things are really easy to fix. So just fix them. For your portfolio, at the CV screen stage, you can give it to us in any format you want. Some people use a website, some people use a PDF. We can use Figma prototypes for it. But during the portfolio interview, I would say try to steer clear of using your website to present, because that format is not great for presenting. Presentations, typically you want to time your what you say with what appears on the screen. So it's better to have something in a presentation style rather than something that is very dense and difficult to read.
Thank you. So now we'll be passing it on to Russell from corporate team.
Yeah, Russell.
Hey everyone, so I'm Russell. The corporate team is quite a varied team, as I'm sure some folks have talked about. I'm from the people team in OGP. So whilst the corporate team covers several functions, right? We talk about marketing, corporate operations, the people team, and of course by extension also what we do on partnerships and policy. The general structure of how we hire for it is the same across the roles. It's the same ethos. Which now probably looks familiar to you because it's also similar to how we do the other internship hiring processes. The first thing we do, depending on the role that's being listed, is the CV screen, right? So we're looking for relevant experience. It's an internship, so we're not necessarily looking for the most directly relevant experience, but things that show their interest, things that show the tangent to that space, whether it's marketing, people ops, or partnerships, right? Whether it's side things you're doing as well, co-curriculars, etc. What we then do is we focus on a take-home assignment, and the idea here is just like the other functions, getting a sense of hands-on work beyond the CV, right? So these are typically case studies, scenarios that are presented. They're done in a take-home format, And the idea is to give you that time and space to, in an unhurried way, show your best work and show your best self towards that work that you're doing. Right? My advice is there's really no need to overthink it per se or over prep. Prep definitely helps, to be clear, but it's really about just showing how you would tackle basically a brand new problem space to you, right? How you'll be concrete, how you'll be tangible about it, not just conceptual, how you actually solve it. The team will then review that, and if that's all well and good, that leads to a longer form interview. So this varies a little bit between functions, but it's typically about an hour. What happens is then with an interview or two from the function, they'll bring you through a resume deep dive, an understanding of the work you've done in the past, the interests you have, but also a deep dive into the assignments. So whatever you've done in the assignments, delving deep into the thinking that you do there. One way that we then really try to focus on how we run these rounds is to focus on basically really diving in deep. So what some places do out there is, they do these resume deep dives, which aren't very deep, they're superficial, it's quite cursory, touch and go questions. We don't do trick questions or anything here. What we do is they talk about something that you've done and we delve in as deep as possible to see what's the depth to which you understand it, right? Which often means at some point you might be left going, actually, yeah, that's the limit of what I know, and that's normal. That's the point of an interview. From there, that's how we decide, right? So from there, actually, we decide whether or not we're extending an internship, and if that's all well and good, we'll bring someone in for an internship. These, like most of the functions, are typically minimally 3 months full-time, because we do focus quite a bit on plugging people in straight into the day-to-day work, right? So we try and make sure that they are around for the week to do so. Yeah.
The most voted question is, what's your worst experience so far?
Worst experience? I think for me, okay, so I mentioned the production incident. That was very scary. Yeah, and it's something that only happens if you are doing production. So yeah, and then I think that incident sort of traumatized me for like 2-3 weeks. Cause like I was so scared to like make PRs and like merge my PRs after that. Just for fear that something might go in that then no one catches and it's all my fault. But yeah, I also shared like how we overcame that. So that was one. I think the second thing is that the team works very fast, very closely and with high standards. So at the start, it was very hard to get used to. And I remember I felt called out a lot for a lot of different things. Like for instance, like, oh, why do you add this like extra prop into this component for not much reason, that kind of thing. But after, yeah, so I was very scared. Then I remember every day I was like walking on eggshells and super conscious of like, self-conscious of every single thing that I was doing. But after a while I realized that actually no one was calling me out. They genuinely wanted to know. And they wanted me to talk back to them and like discuss with them. So after a while, that's what I started doing. And yeah, when that happened, I felt like I was part of a team and that my thought process was very valued. So yeah, it was something that only happened in OGP.
I think for me, I remember my supervisor said this during my internship interview. She mentioned that if you do not make mistakes during the duration of your internship, then something is very wrong. So I'm pretty sure I made like mistakes, big and small, to my designs. So I take that as a badge of honor, because after that, then you grow and you learn, right? And then you rectify the point. And I wouldn't say it's a worse, like a bad experience, but my supervisor had to go on leave for a bit. And during that time, I remember feeling like quite lost. But it's an opportunity for me to like also be able to work independently. And I also reached out to like my colleagues and other designers, and I got a lot of support from them. I think during that time of me feeling a little bit lost, I grew a lot. Yeah, so I wouldn't say bad experience. Yeah, reframing it as something good, opportunity to grow.
No worst experience.
No worst experience. Every experience is good. Okay, so the next most top voted question is, what's the minimum experience expected from OGP interns? are first year uni students able to apply for internship? Alvin can answer this.
Yeah, sure. I'll give that a shot. So we don't necessarily have we don't necessarily have a minimum experience expected. Just show me what you got. I think because like we do have quite a number of people applying to OGP, competition tends to be pretty intense, lah. So if you are just starting out, in your career or just starting out as a fresher. Sorry, no, they call it a freshie here, right? Don't they? So yeah, if you're just starting out in the first year at university, and you don't really have anything to your name, one of the things you could possibly try is to try to build out your portfolio, right? And in particular, maybe find something that that you think would deliver meaningful public good, and study the problem, try to get to know it very well, and try to build something for it. And when you list that in as part of your application to OGP, then that may be something that we might take into account in considering to move you forward for that.
And
Yeah.
another question would be for Elvin to answer. Other than Scam Shield, are there any other anti-scam solutions that are in the works, especially together with ASC and SPF?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't think we can answer that question. That is quite sensitive, so we'll have to
Wonder why.
Okay, so the next question is what is the turnover and retention rate within OGP? Russell, your answer.
We're quite transparent about it. So it's 11% right now, year-on-year attrition, and retention is the flip side of 11%. And that's been something pretty constant over, I was just checking the stats last month, over the last 3 years, that rate's been about there. To put it in context as well, 3 years ago we were probably about 30-something, 40 people. Today we're an organization of 170. So of course, as the organization has grown quite rapidly, that has fueled a lot of, how do I put it? So that has fueled a lot of us also learning how to grow and kind of run the organization, and some of the attrition comes from that, but actually what we've managed to do is kind of keep that consistent throughout those 3 years, even through that growth.
So the next question is, how is the work-life balance at OGP? Maybe the interns want to answer.
For me, my whole life balance quite good. Every day I come in like 10:15. Then depending if I have things late but if I have like nothing, sometimes I go back at like 5. But sometimes I stay until like 6+. So I think work-life balance is pretty good. It's just like how you plan your time. Like just now Pei Zhen said, like the work hours are very flexible. So if you don't have any things in the morning, like you can start at 12 or after lunch, like no one will bother you. So it's really how you plan your time.
Oh yeah, just a digression, but I wanted to point out that we actually have, I think 2 year 1 interns with us this year. Ooh. Yeah. But work-life balance-wise, for me it has been slightly seasonal, because like I mentioned, we had a big feature launch recently. But all the OT that was being done was a very voluntary thing. Like sometimes, because like what I said, the working hours are flexible, right? So sometimes I just really want to take a nap at 1 p.m. because I'm so tired. So I take a nap, but then I'll pay it back with like maybe an extra hour or so. Sometimes when we have bigger feature launch, I just want to complete my part of the project or like my feature. So I will also OT to do that kind of thing willingly. And then my manager will see me still awake on Slack, or like still active on Slack, and he will tell me like, please don't OT, you're just an intern. Or like, just don't OT. Yeah, so that's also something I appreciated. During the huge feature launch, that season where we were particularly busy, I OT'd quite frequently. Not till super late, but I OT'd. And I think the other full-timers were also OTing. But after that we had like, because we have bi-weekly, every 2 weeks we have this like reflection session. I also appreciated that my team had feedback to say like, let's not make OT a culture, and let's be very conscious about this. That OT is not like something we should be doing. It should be something that we maybe want to do sometimes, but shouldn't be a norm. Yeah, so I appreciate that as well.
I don't really relate to the question. I don't believe in work-life balance. I believe in work-life harmony. Yeah.
Hello. One thing I wanted to say is that my manager has a habit of working late at night because sometimes he just goes off in the middle of the afternoon or whatever. So sometimes you'll see him pushing code or reviewing at 1 a.m. or 3 a.m. But he has said this very explicitly to us in our team channel, and I really appreciate it. And I want to bring it up. He said that just because you see me working at 1 a.m. doesn't mean it's the expected. He explained it's because sometimes throughout the day he'll just not work, or he'll wake up late, and then it's just how he likes to do work, and that it shouldn't be a norm for any of us, and that it isn't an expectation for any of us. So I thought that's really nice that he made it very explicit.
Oh, actually, I want to add, right? I think OT and work-life balance is something that is not usually is not a very of course organization-wide there's a culture, but I think across any organization it's very team-specific thing. So you should never go into an organization saying they have good work-life balance, I like that, or they have very bad work-life balance, I don't want them. It's a very team-specific thing. So it's up to your team and your manager to set the expectations.
Okay. Yes. Okay, so the next most top voted question is there an age limit being an intern at OGP? Not for year ones, maybe for mid-career changer, maybe they just want to start somewhere that they believe in. You want to answer? Who wants to answer?
I think I'll take the question. So this for me is career transition. Obviously, I didn't come out from school, right? I'm not in school right now. I would say, I'm not going to reveal my age, you all can guess. But I don't think that's an age limit. Maybe if Russell will tell me openly, then I think this.
You should.
There is no age limit.
There's no age limit, TLDR. Okay, so the next most top voted question is, why do you choose OGP over GovTech? Just as in why do you apply for OGP as opposed to another government agency like GovTech, for example?
I actually applied to GovTech, but they didn't get back to me, so I guess I'm here. Yeah, I mean, that's generally what happened.
Actually, same but I applied everywhere though.
Yeah, just apply.
Yeah, but I guess the reason I had the privilege of choosing, I would still choose OGP. For many reasons, everything we discussed just now. I think the two are actually super different. The only similarities maybe you could find is we build stuff for public good. Yeah, it's very.
Hello. So yeah, maybe I'll just expand a bit on the point that Peter made. So there might be actually some circumstances where you might want to choose GovTech over OGP. I think and there are certain things that OGP is not very good at. So if you're talking about products that have very wide business scope, which would need the manpower of 15-man teams and that sort of thing, that's not something that we can easily take on. And if that's the kind of product kind of problem domains that you're more interested in, then GovTech might actually be the better choice compared to OGP. So yeah, hopefully that's helpful.
Okay, so the next question is directed to Desmond. It's it's a top voter also for now. Is the product design team in OGP heavily involved in the end-to-end product development?
I think so, yes. We are always looking to make a product and make it good and bring it towards to fulfill its maximum potential. We have a variety of products right now. They are all in different stages. For example, SGID has been ongoing for quite some time, right? I think healthcare is pretty new, Medipay. I'm working in a new product, but the ambition is always to maximize its potential and let it go as far as it can go. Yeah, I think that's the aim when we design products.
Okay, cool. So Just now, a lot of you talk about your personal projects. So this question asks, what are some of your favorite personal projects, and how do you usually go about like deciding what side projects to work on? So it's like two parts of the question.
I think this is a software engineering and product design specific.
For me, wait, sorry, what's the question?
What are some of your favorite personal projects, and how do you go about like choosing them?
Honestly, for me, right, I'm not a super like ideal person. I really like working on like ideas that are meaningful to me and tinkering with like small projects. But I'm not a very ideal person. I don't come up with like hackathon worthy ideas. So what I like to do is hang out with people who are like that, like the people at OGP, for instance. And yeah, the ideas that we had sort of came up along the way. So for instance, one of my favorite ones is I made this computer vision web application that like helps you to translate sign language alphabet. So if you put like this, then it's like like this is a W. So like the video feed will like look at this, it will draw like a bounding box and be able to identify W. So yeah, then I gave it to some of my friends to play, and it was quite interesting. Yeah, and then after that we are slowly expanding to like doing more dynamic signs like the I love you or like butterfly, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's very cute. And then outside of that, I'm also actively building this like matchmaking platform for students. That one was also my friend's idea. So he wrote me in as an engineer to like kind of build it, and as we built it, like more and more people joined, so it became like a very exciting side project for me.
For me, I guess when I say side project, I mean hackathons. Because personally, I have like zero discipline to work on side projects. I always like have an idea and I do it halfway. Like right now, my side project is I'm trying to build a Telegram bot that tells me when there's like new anime or manga releases that I'm trying to follow. But I'm like not done with that. So I guess when I say side projects to put on your resume, I mean more specifically hackathons. Because like it's usually hackathons are like a day, right? You just sit there and you think about it and you build it, and it's quite self-contained. And usually it will be something that is very interesting to talk about on your portfolio. So that's
Cool. Okay, so the next question, I think Russell has to take this. So it's a very they use Chinese for this question, but I'll just translate it. So the question is, if one gets hired at OGP, does that mean you iron rice bowl until retirement, aka you won't get fired?
It's a good question, and the short answer is no, it doesn't mean that. Okay, so I'll explain why and how we kind of approach that at OGP. So a big reason we can get OGP working well to build good products and run good teams is that we also want to make sure that we have good, like-minded and high-performing individuals working alongside each other. A big part of that means the analogy towards how we treat the organization is similar if you're familiar to the Netflix model of saying actually fundamentally we run like a team rather than a family in how we think about the workplace. And so that means that if for some reason someone's performance flags, for some reason they're not fit to the job that we hire for, or even if the job needs change, it is a conversation we do have with people about like, is this the right place to be? And at some point if it really isn't, maybe it's time to move on, right? Whether that's exiting the person or the person looking for something else. And when we do that in OGP, actually we want to do that quite deliberately because actually it's meant to help everyone. It's meant to, firstly, for the team that you work alongside, you want to be able to work with people who are performing well as well, right? Everyone wants to work with good, smart people who can perform well alongside with them. On the flip side as well, if someone's not doing well, whether out of interest or aptitude in the organization, we want to give them a space they can thrive. And it's not meant to be an indictment of the person, it's not a bad thing. It's not saying, look, you're terrible or whatever, it's just like, look, maybe this isn't the right place for you. If you join here and try to make a career and you're stagnating for years, actually maybe this isn't the right place. And so we want to have a conversation with people, and that does mean actively asking people who aren't performing, maybe it's time to leave the organization. And also we don't do that as a black mark or anything, it's not a black mark on anyone. We also actively say sometimes, it might be a fit issue with the organization. There's a way OGP teams run, vis-a-vis how other parts of government run, how other tech organizations run. And if it's a good fit somewhere else, we actively refer people, right? So it's something of how we want to treat the idea of how do we maintain high-performing teams and keep people that work well in the environments, but how also do we help people exit gracefully, but not even just exit gracefully, but find the right fit for them. So that's kind of how we run very deliberately. So.
Thanks for answering the question, Russell. So the next popular question is, for the 3 interns, what's your favorite backend programming language? Backend programming language. Just one favorite.
I think I'm more of a front end person. I don't have a preference, but I've used Python and here is TypeScript.
Python and TypeScript.
Actually, no preference lah.
No
like,
preference.
I feel like as long as that. I think for me it depends more on how my team maintains it and how well it's maintained. Cause like you can use like TypeScript and then you don't type things properly. I think it defeats the purpose, so I don't like that either. So, but a lot of these enforcements are like a culture and a team culture rather than whether I like that language or not. Yeah.
For me, I'm a huge TypeScript fanboy, and that's why I like OGP as well, because it's kind of like they make everyone use TypeScript for everything. So yeah, TypeScript.
Okay, can. So the last question that we have, I mean we have a lot of questions, but I think I'll email you all the answers afterwards because there's like too many questions really. But I'll just ask the last question for the interns. How do you manage your work boundaries to avoid burnout while being productive? Maybe Shreyas or Desmond, if you want to have any inputs also.
3 months, burning out in 3 months is a bit short, I would say. But I like to go gym a lot and running, yeah.
Shreyas has to give you like work-life harmony. Yeah, I think similarly I go exercise. And this is something I'm also learning, which is to have block out like focus time for myself to do work. Yeah.
I think same for me. Like I actually burn out a lot in school. So coming to the workplace was actually a way for me to learn how to manage that better and to break out that mindset. So first of all, keep to your office hours. If you're not used to flexible office hours, then enforce it yourself. Otherwise you end up working the whole day, which is not correct. Also keep your boundaries and know your priorities. So if you want to go play sports, you like sports, then go and play every week and make sure that you uphold those kind of commitments. And not say like I'm too busy, because your work stops somewhere and you have to understand that you come first. Your work is like your work, but you work to live a good life.